Hello, my name is Philip Moon. I'm with the Channel Enablers Division of Miller Heiman. Last week I spoke at the Miller Heiman Customer Summit that was held in Sydney, Australia. This is the presentation I gave at that time. The theme of the event was Getting Closer to Customers, and that's the title of the presentation. Well, actually, getting closer to more customers, and doing so with a lower cost of sales and providing a better overall product or service. Not the most short and snappy title for a presentation, I'm sure, but it does describe the basic rationale for doing business with and through indirect channels. Most companies have more than one route to market, or route to market, depending upon where you're from. So distributors, resellers, agents, franchisees, and the online web store are all examples of routes to market. But few companies manage them as a coordinated portfolio of routes. I asked the audience at the Customer Summit these three questions. The first was, have you ever bought a product online? And there'd be few surprises that most people put their hands up. The second question is, have you ever bought a product online that you first went and checked out in a store? And once again, most people put their hands up. I was able to give my own example of this when I bought a video camera not too long ago. It was a reasonably expensive purchase. It was $800. So I went to the stores, first of all, had a really good look at them, picked them up, played with them, before I was able to select the kind of model that I was looking for. But even at that time, despite the fact the salesperson had been so helpful, I felt the need to just go and do a little bit more shopping around before I made that purchase decision. Later, I actually made the decision to buy the product online. Despite the fact the store had been so helpful, I couldn't ignore the fact that there was a 30% premium of price paid necessary to buy it from the store. So I asked the third question then, in that kind of situation, how many of you would have simply purchased from the retailer and the store a few years ago? And once again, most people put their hands up. Now that little quick poll told us a couple of things. First, it told us that channels are changing and fairly quickly. Users are now fairly comfortable buying online, and international shipping is now cheaper and better than it's ever been before. So people in those industries are enjoying something like a 23% growth rate for online commerce and for shipping, at least in Australia. And I'm sure that that would be mirrored in other places in the world. The other thing that little quick poll told us is that the store that I gave in my example actually provided a lot of value to me. It was an opportunity for me to pick up the product, play with it, before I was able to make a purchase decision. And I don't think I would have bought a product unless I'd seen it that way. But the chances are that the store was not being recognised for its contribution to the customer in this case, and certainly not being compensated for. It's perhaps one of the axioms of indirect sales is that customers determine what the most successful channel is going to be. They gravitate towards the most effective channel over time. And the basis of their decision is which channel to market or which route to market can provide the best overall product at the lowest possible price. This data from Miller Heiman's Sales Best Practices study show that most respondents have multiple routes to market. Few companies will only sell direct these days. The danger for vendors and manufacturers who are navigating these changing routes to market is that often the ones who are most successful before the transition are the biggest losers during the transition. Let's look at a brief case study example to illustrate the point. This is a true story about a regional finance and administration manager. He worked for a fairly major vendor that's only recently moved into the indirect channel to reach the small to medium business marketplace. They traditionally only sold to enterprise customers and only sold direct. He issued a memo to all of his channel salespeople near the end of their third quarter, and it said, please instruct partners to place their orders during the first 3 weeks of the fourth quarter because we'll be busy processing large direct customer orders in the following weeks. Now, what does that say to you? These were not low-priced products that resellers would simply put in stock. These were licensed products. They're quite expensive, and end users will only sign the license agreement when they're ready to. It tells me that the manager was doing his best to cope with a situation he simply wasn't prepared for, that is, the rapid increase in the volume of business that hit his department when they moved into the indirect channel. The other thing it tells me is that he had a completely unrealistic expectation of what partners would do. He expected partners to simply do as they were told. And as you can imagine, the channel managers in this case would have had a pretty hard time carrying out his request. Channel transitions are driven by change in consumer needs, changes in products and services, and that's often driven by technological change. So routes to market have to change too, and that change is happening fast. Things that were sold by a specialist solution provider a few years ago are often now sold next to the candy in the supermarket checkout line. So the hard lesson is that what made you successful in one part of the market life cycle can absolutely doom you to failure in others. Here are 4 questions for you to ponder. What's changing in the way that your customers want to buy? And how are you using this information to shape your own route to market strategy? Is there anything that your company does today that attempts to force how customers will engage with you, perhaps in ways that are not their preference? And if things are changing, we know that routes are changing, partners have to change too. So how relevant is your traditional partner ecosystem today? How relevant will those partners be in 12 months' time or 2 years' time? And I guess the big question is, what are you doing about all of this? How is this shaping your 2013-2014 channel change objectives? Because if you're not planning to change, the chances are that you might be one of the biggest losers as well. The graph I showed earlier proves that many of you are changing the way you go to market. And for most of you, the shift is towards indirect channel sales. So in the time that I have left, I want to talk about 6 key things to focus on for success through indirect channels. Many companies that predominantly sell direct have a direct sales culture. The direct sales guy is king. He's the person that's always up on stage being congratulated when the sales awards are handed out. And by contrast, the channel sales guy, well, he's the guy that wasn't quite good enough for direct sales, but we won't fire him because we think he's a nice guy and he's got a couple of kids to take care of. The leading companies who've really embraced channel sales have recognized that the channel account manager role is a highly sophisticated job. They're dealing with partner business owners at all levels. They're having to form teams and work through other people to get things done using influence. They're creators of and managers of scalable processes. And in fact, they're virtual sales managers to many of their partners, even though they have little real authority. And they manage a huge share of your company's revenue. To be truly successful in indirect sales means becoming a channel-centric organization. And 2 quick tests of channel centricity are, does everybody understand why you're doing business with and through channels? Do they understand the value that partners contribute to the business and to your end-user customers? The second point is simply to provide the customer with what they want to buy. Customers want lots of things before they'll make a buying decision in your favour. It could be stock, it might be expertise in their industry or local presence, or advice or support or finance. Whatever it is, we call this the whole product solution. And partners provide elements of this whole product solution. In effect, you are outsourcing to the channel provision of some of these elements. Now, getting closer to the customer means regularly researching the whole product. What is it that the customers in your target markets need to make a buying decision in your favour? And once you know what this is, you can figure out which elements that your company can most cost-effectively provide or which should be more cost-effectively outsourced to the channel. The retail store that I mentioned in my example of buying a video camera was providing a useful service to me. I got a chance to play with a video and look at different models. The problem is, this retail store probably is not being compensated for the value they're providing me as a customer. In fact, the vendor of the camera probably doesn't even recognize it. And that brings us to the next point. Once you know what you want partners to do, you have to do the math to understand what it will cost the partner to deliver these whole product elements to the customer. Different types of partners will provide different elements and so should be paid differently for their contribution. It stands to reason, unless you pay partners for what you want them to do, they won't do it, and you'll end up bearing the cost anyway if you want to keep your customers. Partners get picked for some pretty bad reasons. Perhaps because they're golf buddies, or maybe they signed up on your website where you have a button that says click here to become a partner. Or perhaps more commonly these days, because they're existing partners and your company routinely releases all new products to all existing partners regardless of whether they're a good fit or not. The fact is that some partners are likely to be clowns and they'll cost you a lot of money, so careful partner selection and recruitment is absolutely essential. And the best partners are going to be sought after by your competitors too. Here's a question I asked the audience at the Sales Summit, and not many people were willing to give an answer. I asked, if you're considering the relationship between your company and your indirect channel partners, how would you describe them? Are they best described as customers of your business or as suppliers to your business? And my answer is, whilst you often have to treat them like customers and influence them like customers, you really need to think of them as suppliers. They're suppliers of sales, roles and responsibilities, and whole product elements. And remember, the end-user customer is the person that pays for everything, and you should never lose sight of this. Channel account managers need the skills and the programs to manage partners to fulfill their commitments in the sales process. And that means that planning and review is absolutely essential. You're teaching partners to ignore you if you don't plan with them, and worse, they might miss some vital part of the sales process. In addition to these management skills, channel account managers need the skills to influence partners to choose to partner with you and to focus on and invest in your product. Because partners have a choice of who they will invest in and focus on. When margin discounts and partner programs are similar between vendors, our research has revealed that partners consider consistency as their #1 criterion when choosing a vendor in which to invest their limited funds. If you want partner preference and investment, you need solid rules of engagement. These define the way that you work with partners, and they also define what will happen if the rules ever get broken, typically by the vendor or manufacturer's salespeople. So in summary, I've been talking about getting closer to more customers, doing so at a lower cost of sales, and providing a better, more competitive overall product or service. In having this conversation, I've touched upon some of the 7 key performance areas that are described by Channel Enabler's Channel Pro model for indirect channels and alliances success. When you do get indirect channels right, when there's a high degree of trust between vendors and partners, when roles and responsibilities are clear, when vendors and partners are planning together around aligned business goals, and when the channel sales force has the skills they need to manage and coach partners, then the channel can have a tremendous multiplier effect, not just on revenue, but also on the amount of market information that's flowing back to your company. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about us, please visit us online at worldwideweb.channelenablers.com or visit the Partner Manager Resource Centre at www.channelenablers.net.